Good morning, All Souls Community Church. It's Thursday, May the 7th. Thanks again for tuning in to our daily encouragement. Hey, have you subscribed to our YouTube page or followed our Facebook page or Instagram page? Have you given us a like recently? We want to encourage you to begin thinking along those lines. Why? Because we want to stay connected with you. If you're a part of our church, we want to ask you to help us get the word out. If you're not yet a part, if you're just checking us out for the first time online, we want you to know that we're super excited to connect with you, and we'd like to continue to do that. And so, if you would follow our page or subscribe on YouTube, it'll keep you connected to us. And every time we put out one of these words of encouragement, it'll make it to your inbox there. So we hope that we can stay connected. But friends, this week we've been talking all about this promise of God to give us something, specifically Himself, in the midst of crisis, in the midst of pandemics, in the midst of viruses like the coronavirus, plagues, if you will. He's promised that as we turn back to Him, as we cry out to Him, He's going to give us something. And today I want to unpack with you a little bit more of what He's promising to give us, as He promises to give us Himself. Remember, this promise is not a promise to dump all of heaven into us at one time, but is actually a promise that heaven is coming, but that there will be a foretaste of that, a down payment in the person of the Holy Spirit that He promises to reside inside of us. And one of the things that the Holy Spirit promises to do is to change our taste buds. Do you know, one of the things that we all struggle with during coronavirus, during quarantine time, is eating the right foods, right? It's so hard to not want to make cookies every day and eat them all the time. And while your stomach might feel like it's not growing, when you try to put those jeans on, not the sweatpants for the first time, not the stretchy pants, but the jeans, you'll get a very clear picture of just how much your stomach might be changing. I've had a few of those shocking moments myself, and so I'm trying to eat a little better, right? Well, believe it or not, God says one of the things the Holy Spirit does in us is changes our taste buds. And I don't mean the food that we're eating, I mean the desires that we have. In Ezekiel 36, God makes this promise. He says, when I put my Spirit inside of you, I'm going to give you a heart transplant. I'm going to change the heart of stone inside of you and give you a heart of flesh. And part of that transformation in your life is going to mean you're going to want new things. You're going to actually want to follow after me. Your desires are going to change. The things after which you crave will be different because you're going to want more of me, more of God. And I don't know about you, but what I have found is that change doesn't come easily. While I have seen in my own life many different ways that God has been changing my desires, especially as He's turned up the heat in this quarantine time, it's not without a battle. And I love the fact that Paul picks up on this picture from Ezekiel 36 in his letter to the Philippian church in Philippians chapter 2, when he says this: continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. Why? Because you know that it's God, or God's Spirit, at work inside of you to will and to act according to His good purpose. Did you hear it? He said the same thing that Ezekiel promised in Ezekiel 36. But he said we have it already, but He wants us to work it out. Why? I love that phrase, work it out. Why? Because it's not going to be easy. Because we have certain desires that we're used to having. We have old ways of living that we're used to living. And in order to retrain ourselves, it's going to be a struggle. But here's the beautiful thing. It's not just us pulling up our bootstraps and trying harder. It's God's promise to be at work in us, changing us from the inside out, that He wants us to work in concert with. He wants us to walk alongside of, to not quench the Spirit, but to get in the flow of the Spirit. And that as we do, our taste buds will change. Our heart, our desires will change. And suddenly we'll start to want what Jesus wants. We'll start to act like Jesus. We'll start to see the fruit of Jesus and His Spirit in our lives. We have a part to play in this. And I think one of the gifts of the quarantine time has been, for me and for many others, that the fact that it's highlighted just how much of the old desires still live inside of this heart, mine and yours. And yet, how our story's not over, how God's not done with us. Continue, Paul says, to work out your salvation with fear and with trembling, because we know that it's God who works in us to will and to act according to His good purpose. We know God's promise. We've seen some of the fruit of it already. Why not let today be a day where you choose to exercise your faith? How? By insisting that you're right? By insisting that it's someone else's fault? By stomping your feet until you get what you want? No. How about instead by entering in the way that Jesus enters in that same letter to that same church in Philippians? Not considering equality with God something to be grasped, he made himself nothing. He humbled himself and considered the needs of others before his own. He was not pompous. He was not arrogant. He laid down the rights that he already had, that were his by right, to love and serve those that God had given him to love and serve. What if today, part of our working out of this salvation, part of the first fruits, living in the first fruits of God, the power of God inside of us, included us making the very difficult decision to lay down our rights in love for those that God has given us to love, in our homes and in our circles today? I wonder what might happen. I think he calls it redemption. I think he calls it joy. I think he calls it life. Will you enter into that life with me today? I hope so. We get to change the world one life at a time. God be with you today.